Insurance fraud in the UK has hit epidemic levels. It's costing us over £1 billion every year. That's almost £3.5 million every day. Deliberate crashes, bogus personal injuries, even phantom pets. The fraudsters are risking more and more to make a quick killing. And every year, it's adding over £50 to your insurance bill. But insurers are fighting back, exposing just under 15 fake claims every hour, armed with covert surveillance systems.
That's a subject out the vehicle.
Sophisticated data analysis techniques, and a number of highly skilled police units. They're catching the criminals red-handed.
Just don't lie to us.
All those con men, scammers and cheats on the fiddle are now caught in the act and claimed and shamed. Coming up, one fraudster performs a vanishing act.
She was wanted by all 43 police forces and was literally on the run.
A victim of a road traffic accident has a change of heart.
He'd obviously been allured to the money that had been put aside for him.
And RSA encounter the world's unluckiest dog owners.
When you looked at the invoices and the supporting documentation, they didn't really stack up.
It is estimated that there were around 4 million offences of theft in the UK last year. So it goes without saying that insuring your belongings is something worth doing. Whether you bought something outright or are just hiring it, insurance is there to protect you if things go walkies. But unfortunately, not all claims are what they appear. And that's where claim validation specialists like ICOG come in. Managing Director Tara Shelton's previous experience as a police officer and psychologist came in handy when she dealt with a claim from a woman named Diane Thompson, who had become a victim of a mugging.
She was in a park in London and she had been approached by 3 males who robbed her of 6 cases of photographic equipment that she'd hired to make a music video. The equipment in total was worth £150,000.
£150,000? Clearly this wasn't your average camera.
It's more to do with Hollywood blockbuster movies. That's the type of camera it is.
Unsurprisingly, with a claim of that size, the insurance company were keen for Tara to find out more. So she gave Diane a call.
Hello. I was filming a music video.
Can I ask why you needed such sophisticated equipment?
I like it to look a certain way. That's what I want. I'm a perfectionist and that's what I want to see. That's what I want to produce.
And what's your occupation?
Accountant.
You're an accountant?
Yep.
And how long have you been an accountant?
About 15 years.
15 years?
Yeah.
With a long career as an accountant and a real passion for professional filming, spending 150 grand on her kit wasn't that far-fetched.
I initially asked Diane Thompson to just tell me in detail exactly what happened.
I decided to go to the park to shoot some outtakes for a scenery shot. And I was approached by 3 men. Sorry, I'm still quite shaken up when I talk about it.
Take your time.
With someone as passionate about high-definition images as Diane obviously was, you'd expect her descriptions to be spot on.
I separated each of the 3 offenders, if you like, and asked her to describe them.
Would you be kind enough to describe the first one to me, please?
Okay. Number 1 had on black bottom and a black jumper, fair hair and Irish accent.
Okay. And then if we were to concentrate on offender 2, how would you describe him?
Same. He had on black bottoms and a black jumper. He fair-haired also. Yeah, about the same.
She quite clearly faltered at that point, and strangely enough, all 3 looked exactly the same and were all wearing exactly the same clothing.
And then if we can just focus on the last one, if that's okay.
Yeah. Same fair hair, very much the same looking as the others.
It's interesting.
This certainly does sound interesting.
And then what happened next?
My battery on my phone was dead, so I couldn't call the police right away.
Mugged and no mobile phone, Diane really was having a bad day.
I drove to the nearest police station, which was Boreham Wood, and it was closed, which I've never experienced before in my life.
And her bad luck didn't end there, as Diane wasn't able to find the boys in blue anywhere.
The account of her being approached by 3 males who were all dressed the same and all looked the same, and then her actions after the theft of racing around London for 5 hours in a car to report it to the police, but every police station that she visited was closed, just didn't ring true.
One hell of a day.
One hell of a story, more like. And unfortunately for Diane, the longer the call went on, the more her account sounded like fiction rather than fact.
When I relayed my concerns to Diane, it was quite interesting. She took on a persona of quite an uneducated, weak female who didn't understand.
Took everything, all of the equipment.
She might have struggled to find the police on the day, but fortunately for Diane, she was now speaking to the perfect person.
I understand these situations are quite distressing, and if I can give you any reassurance, I'm actually an ex-detective inspector, so I'm quite used to all these sort of issues, so I understand how difficult it must be.
Thank you.
Well, it's not every day you have a former detective investigating your case. That can only be a good thing, can't it?
After my phone call with Diane, it was very important at that stage just to follow the normal insurance process. We had to meet Diane, and I invited the insurer to come with me and take a statement from her and actually get her to sign that statement.
But when Tara arrived at the address Diane had given, the case took a shocking twist.
When I actually turned up at her home address, not only was she not there, but she hadn't been living at that address for probably about 3 months at that time. Unfortunately, the only way for her to get out of this situation was to go on the run.
This really is starting to sound like a Hollywood plot. And Tara thinks she may know exactly why Diane did a runner.
Her motivation for disappearing was very, very clear to me. She'd been detected. Diane Thompson was wanted by all 43 police forces and was literally on the run.
With the country's police force on the lookout for Diane, Tara and her team turned their attention to the stolen kit.
In the media industry, there's actually an intelligence database where you can place potentially stolen equipment to alert the industry that any equipment that comes into their hands with this particular serial number has been reported as stolen.
Thanks to this database, the plot thickened even further.
A few days later, a music producer in Italy contacted the Metropolitan Police and said, "I have that camera in my hands as we speak."
So the kit that our pretend producer had flogged abroad was returned to the hire company. But finding Diane wasn't so easy, and she stayed missing for over a year, until the police had a remarkable stroke of luck.
The local policing team just happened to be passing one of her old addresses, and she just happened to be standing outside. I mean, it was literally that random, and she was arrested and conveyed straight to Holloway on a remand warrant pending trial.
She may have been a phony producer, but Diane still had one final plot twist up her sleeve.
When I found out that Diane had gone against her advice from her own counsel and decided to plead not guilty, I was utterly amazed.
It might have taken a year to track Diane down, but justice was served rather more swiftly.
And I was absolutely delighted when, within 9 minutes, the jury unanimously found Diane Thompson guilty.
Diane Thompson had claimed for over £150,000 worth of equipment, but instead of a career behind the camera, she got over 2 years behind bars.
I think it's fair to say Diane Thompson thought she was cleverer than she was, and that first phone call I had with her, without question, identified that she wasn't going to get away with this story, but because she was in so deep and was committed to her story at that time, she really had no choice but to follow it through or to admit the truth. And she was never going to admit the truth, and to this day she still doesn't admit the truth.
Still to come, there's a fiery case of whodunit.
What's quite clear is that he deliberately started the fire and left it to burn out.
And some sick puppies need looking at.
Either the Staffords were the unluckiest dog owners in the world, or else there was something not quite right about this claim.
With around 30 million cars on UK roads, it's unfortunately inevitable that accidents happen from time to time. But thankfully, not all accidents are severe. Colin Bushell of DWF knows as well as anyone that no matter how big or small a claim may be, they all need investigating, even if it involves parked vehicles.
The accident itself is quite straightforward. The claimant's coming along a minor road and looks to park up on the side of the road. The defendant is actually parked to his left and he's looking to come onto the main road itself, and there's a very minor bump between the two cars.
A minor bump. That sounds like it should be a quick and easy claim to settle.
This was a straightforward case. LV were looking to make payments in respect of the vehicle damage, so there are no issues from their perspective.
Hello, can I speak to me?
Oh, hello. How are you doing? All right.
Ursula Jello and her team at LV dealt with the claim.
He told us about somebody who'd actually rung him earlier in the morning, letting him know that they knew that he'd had an accident and that actually he was entitled to some money.
Yeah, I've had a lady phone me today saying, look, obviously we know that you were stationary, the man's insurance has accepted liability for it and everything like that.
Right.
You're entitled to this money that's been set aside for you. Is that right that you've got money put aside for saying that if anything happens to me?
To the claimant's credit, he actually said that he had a pre-existing condition.
I don't know about this lady, she was saying to me, have you got a bad back, sir? A bad neck? I said, look, I suffer from a bad back and it just so happens that I've got a bad back at the moment, but it wasn't through that.
As an insurance company, this was great to hear a consumer telling us this, because that tells us actually the message is getting across that it's not okay to put a fraudulent whiplash claim through when actually there's nothing wrong with you. And so actually when we were hearing this from our third party, it was very, very refreshing.
And this upstanding man wasn't exactly shy about sharing his feelings about opportunistic claimants.
But all these people that are doing this in this country should be shot, to be honest. I know it sounds a little bit severe.
Having had the conversation with the third party, we then surprisingly had a claim through from a solicitor acting on behalf of him.
When investigators read through the document, it seemed to tell a different story altogether.
He has a neck injury, which is described as being severe, and a lower back injury, which again is severe.
Hang on. The last time they spoke to him, he was strongly against bogus claims.
I don't know about this lady, she was saying to me, have you got a bad back, sir? A bad neck?
He'd obviously been allured to the money that had been put aside for him.
Is that right, that you've got money put aside for saying that if anything happens to me?
As the insurers continued to read on, it went from surprising to shocking.
Very specifically within the medical report is reference to having suffered severe shock, and there was actually severe travel fear included within the medical report itself.
Travel fear? That's a new one on me. This chap really had done a complete U-turn.
When you look at and consider the evidence or the tone very much within the initial phone call, this gentleman doesn't come across as somebody who is in any way, shape or form suffering from shock. He comes across as a very calm, considered gentleman.
I've got a bad back, yeah, I've got a bad back, but I couldn't plead down to taking that knock in the car doing it.
So even though this claimant's injury seemed to have changed drastically, unbelievably, he still stuck to his story.
Both parties decided to run this to trial. If the claimant were to succeed, he's looking at the value of his claim to be around £3,500.
Armed with the evidence from the phone call, LV and DWF were more than happy to go to court.
The call recording is fairly unique. It's not often you're able to bring that type of evidence to a judge's attention.
Above all else, the phone call evidence proved one thing.
First and foremost, you told us you weren't injured. You're now telling us you are.
I'm all right. I feel all right. So I've got a bad back anyway, but it wasn't through that.
His story-changing antics didn't help him when the time came to stand in front of the judge.
So at trial, I think it's fair to say that the claimant came across very poorly and had quite a bad day out, to be honest with you. The extent of his cross-examination was lengthy, and he was taken to all of the inconsistencies, which were numerous. A good example would be the fact that the claimant forgot that he'd actually suffered, or allegedly suffered, a neck injury. That was something he had to try and explain away in the face of the court to the judge.
But unlike our claimant, the judge on this case only says what he means.
So the outcome of the hearing itself is really straightforward. The claimant failed on every aspect of his claim, so it was dismissed in full.
And although this claimant lost his case, he should count himself fortunate.
I'd suggest the claimant was actually quite lucky. The court dismissed his case, but took no further steps. On a different day, before a different judge, he may well have been found to have been fundamentally dishonest. Or worst case scenario, he could be held to be in contempt.
Think of that as the court equivalent of 3 points.
If we actually look at the original phone call itself, this gentleman acknowledges that the types of individuals who are going to pursue exaggerated claims are a scourge.
All these people that are doing this in this country should be shot, to be honest.
Apart from the should be shot bit, incredibly, this claimant has hit the nail on the head.
They're making everyone's insurance policies go up through the ceiling.
And that is exactly why this issue has to be investigated. Those making spurious, invalid, exaggerated claims are the root cause of this increased premium.
Pets can be a great addition to the home. In fact, it's estimated that 12 million UK households have them. And the most popular pet by a long way is, you guessed it, dogs, with 8.5 million nationwide. And for some homes, one dog just isn't enough, as John Beadle discovered when RSA received a call from a canine-loving couple.
The Staffords took out 3 policies with us. The first policy was for a dog called Buster.
Unfortunately, illness and injury affect most pets at some point, and sadly, Buster was no different.
Buster, the dog, sadly broke his leg, so we funded the treatment for his broken leg, which then developed into cancer, and that ultimately led to him having to have his leg amputated, and then very sadly, ultimately had to be put to sleep.
Losing a pet can be an extremely upsetting experience, but fortunately, the Stafford family were covered.
The thing with pet insurance is, and I'm a dog owner, is you hope you never have to use your pet insurance, but sadly sometimes you do.
Following Buster's passing, Mr. and Mrs. Stafford did what many dog lovers would do. They bought another canine companion.
They subsequently took out another policy for a dog called Angel, and then Angel also developed a form of cancer.
Visits to the vets aren't cheap, and so the Stafford family quickly racked up thousands of pounds worth of vet bills.
And of course, all these claims we were paying in good faith, because they were all supported by documentation from the vets and invoices.
With their recent upsetting losses in mind, the Stafford family decided to cheer themselves up with a third dog, Winston.
Winston then developed cancer.
3 dogs with cancer. This is starting to sound like Groundhog Day.
We were entitled to think that either the Staffords were the unluckiest dog owners in the world, with all 3 of their poor animals having developed cancer, or else there was something not quite right about this claim.
And reading Mr. and Mrs. Stafford's paperwork did little to settle the investigators' concerns.
Our fraud investigator, when they began to look at this case, and when you looked at the invoices and the supporting documentation, they didn't really stack up. They didn't look as professional as they perhaps should have done.
With concerns about Mr. and Mrs. Stafford's numerous pet insurance claims, RSA checked the authenticity of the documents.
And of course, when we went and visited the vets, they said they'd never created any of this documentation, all the stamps and the signatures used were all fraudulent.
Knowing that the documents were dodgy, RSA passed the case on to the City of London Police's Insurance Fraud Enforcement Department. After investigating the case, IFED officers arrested Mr. and Mrs. Stafford and charged them with conspiracy to commit fraud by false representation. And when the case got to court, the judge was less than impressed with the couple's shaggy dog story.
We were pleased with the sentence handed down to the Staffords. They didn't go to prison, but they got a substantial suspended prison sentence, plus a community service order.
The couple were also ordered to repay every penny of the £8,000 they'd fraudulently received.
They probably thought it was easy, that insurers don't have any controls around this, and they were probably motivated by greed. So my message to the people is, we're not stupid, and you will get caught.
So all three of Mr. and Mrs. Stafford's pet insurance claims were bogus. But whatever happened to their dogs?
Angel and Winston didn't exist at all.
So if Angel and Winston were phantom pooches, what about Buster?
There is a kind of nice postscript to this story, because when we unravelled this series of claims as a fraud, we actually saw Buster, who was alive and well, and I can assure you he had all 4 legs still on him.
The UK's fire and rescue services attend over 200,000 fires every year. But as Tom Gardiner from Aviva knows only too well, some fire-related insurance claims are less smoky and more hokey, particularly when the police are giving you the heads up on a suspicious claim.
Mr. Lee made a claim for fire damage to his Ford Transit van, which was found burnt out in a car park whilst it was unattended.
Good morning, Aviva Direct.
Hello, we've had a fire in one of our vehicles that's insured with yourself.
Do you have the fire brigade there at all?
Yeah, they've put it out.
Right from the start, doubts were raised about Mr. Lee's version of events.
Very quickly, we had a number of concerns about the claim. The fire appeared to have been deliberately started in the passenger seat, but the vehicle was found locked, and he also had burns to his hands.
It certainly sounds suspicious, but Mr. Lee had an explanation.
Because basically there was a chemical spillage in the back of the van. Because we do landscape gardening, it can actually cause quite heavily burns.
The police clearly thought the burns to Mr. Lee's hands meant that he had something to do with the fire himself. He sought to explain that as being as a result of handling weed killer.
It wasn't looking good for Mr. Lee, but then Aviva discovered something that added even more fuel to the fire.
The decisive piece of evidence and the nail in the coffin was CCTV coverage at the car park, which Mr. Lee had overlooked, but which actually showed him driving the vehicle on fire into the car park. He later tried to explain that as being fog or mist, but which the police were able to rule out and said that the weather was clear.
With alarm bells well and truly ringing, Aviva were confident they now knew the facts.
I think what's quite clear is that Mr. Lee deliberately started the fire in the vehicle himself, drove it to the car park and locked it and left it to burn out.
Realising his claim was up in smoke, Mr. Lee started having second thoughts.
8 days after he'd reported the incident, Mr. Lee telephoned Aviva wanting to withdraw the claim.
I've had a lot of hassle with the police. The police arrested me for insurance fraud.
Insurance fraud?
Yeah. If there's no claim, then you haven't committed insurance fraud, so I might as well take the vehicle back, sell the pieces, and get my money back.
Unfortunately, what he didn't realise was withdrawing a claim wouldn't take away the crime.
Faced with the evidence against him in court, Mr. Lee took a turn for the worse.
At the trial, during evidence, when presented with the CCTV images, he suddenly alleged chest pains, And as a result, the trial was adjourned while an ambulance attended.
Thankfully, the chest pains didn't last, and it wasn't long before the trial resumed.
Mr. Lee finally received a suspended sentence of 16 weeks.
So, anyone thinking they can just walk away from this type of fraudulent claim is risking more than just burnt fingers.
I think the lesson is that submitting fraudulent claims isn't the solution, because you will get caught, you will get prosecuted. Mr. Lee will find it very difficult to access financial products in the future, and instead of being a lot better off, he's a lot worse off.
If you think that man's attempt to cash in was extreme, then buckle up. Because outside the British Isles, there are people whose attempts to cash in on insurance payouts go from ridiculously shocking to just plain stupid. Let's file that one under ridiculous, shall we? And the risks some people are willing to go to can be frightening. Even your mate is leaving you alone on that one. Taxi! Getting caught faking a personal injury claim can be pretty serious, but to some, it's worth the risk. But not worth making an effort, though, I see. Here's a chap who seems happy to show you how it's done. That'll leave a mark. Maybe next time this young man will think twice before he throws himself in front of a moving car. That looks like more of a snooze than a bruise on your bike. Yep, when it comes down to it, to some people it doesn't matter if it's on a slow street or a hurtling highway. Forget the payout, you're lucky to leave this scam with your life. Ludicrous claims happen all over the world. But if that isn't scary enough, some people are taking their chances and falling in front of moving cars here in the UK too, as this unlucky learner driver found out. Yep, this looks like a perfect road to practice the old three-point turn.
Yeah, as you came around, you should have steered to your right. What's he doing?
That's nice of him.
Okay, carry on.
Oh, he's back. Maybe he's going to give the windscreen a clean. Comfortable down there, are you? I want to see that again. Put it in reverse, would you? Here he comes. Oh, there you go. Thankfully, this man walked away and didn't submit an insurance claim.
Just get out of there. Just get out of there. Pull forward.